Greetings and welcome back to another episode of the Aaron Jacobs podcast. I am Aaron Jacobs, a former public school director based out of the state of Ohio and now turned health and fitness coach. And today I'm talking about why you should stop being average. This is now the third time I'm sitting down to record this podcast episode because the first two times I recorded it, I felt myself get very angry talking about this subject. And as much as there are some things in this world now and in America that are tougher to achieve, like financial independence, home ownership, maybe even happiness in general. Yes, there are things that are stacked against you, but the amount of people that are willing to put in consistent reps over time to get to a great result is just so low. And in order to actually be above average and see above average results, it's actually surprisingly and shockingly very simple and not, in my view, that difficult to do. But I have a hard time not getting really upset with just the average level of effort the typical person's willing to put into anything. It really does drive me nuts. And this is actually a big reason why I felt like I couldn't teach in public schools anymore. The amount of effort that the average kid is willing to put into anything these days is pretty abysmal. And I don't want to be around a large collection of people that are just okay with being average because I feel like it brings me down. And that may sound like I'm holier than thou and quote unquote better than you, but to a degree, I've made myself that way. My entire life, I have always looked at what people do that I do, a commonality, like whether it's the gym, whether it's my martial arts as a kid, whether it was music school and how much people were practicing and the kind of effort they were doing. I looked at what the average person was doing and I said, I just need to do more than that. I just need to do a little bit more than that. I've done that my entire life. And so the fact that I get to just up and leave a job and now work on things and do whatever I want, which by the way, is not just fitness. Let me toss this out there. I'm actually also studying cybersecurity and working on getting IT certifications because I find technology fascinating and I just want to learn. I want to know more. And so, yeah, I'm doing all the things now, learning business, coaching fitness, learning cybersecurity. I'm doing all the things, man. And the average person could do more and probably could do something along those lines, but they just aren't willing to put in the reps. And so I guess I just get very, very annoyed and tired of seeing people want more for themselves, but not willing to do the not fun and the boring things it takes to get there. And what's interesting though, is I think for me, cybersecurity in particular, and also continue to learn more about fitness. So like what most people would consider boring reps, I consider those boring reps to be quite engaging. I just hit some materials in my course that I'm doing for CompTIA Network Plus that are very focused on the cybersecurity and like how people hack things. Like, how could you not find that stuff fascinating? And so I really have enjoyed, especially now as more of the basic stuff is under my belt now, I've really enjoyed understanding like how things are hacked and where the vulnerabilities in networks are. And let me tell you, just as at a very surface level, without getting too technical, it is shocking how vulnerable passwords are when you start studying this stuff. It is wild. But I'm just equally as shocked at how many people are not willing to put in the required work to get where they want to go and are okay with just being average and just keeping themselves stuck where they are. And maybe that may seem like, well, it's easy for you to say because of this and that, but no, it's not. I was very dependent from like an identity standpoint, an emotional standpoint, and a validity to my life standpoint as being a band director. That was such a part of my identity for so long. And I'm now completely rebuilding everything around my life at the age of 39. So no, it's not easy, but let me tell you, it's worth it. And it's a hell of a journey. But if we're just talking about the health and fitness space, what does it take to be above average? You have to be willing to do more than the average person to get out of where you are. And maybe I'm just hypersensitive to this, but I really get annoyed being around average levels of effort, being around a group of people like typical Gen Alpha kids, what the average level of effort, attention, and courtesy that a Gen Alpha kid's willing to show in today's world in a band classroom, I wasn't willing to be around it. All it did was bring me down. So let's take a look at the adults though. Here's average in America. 75% of adults are overweight or obese, which is 3 out of 4 people. That's a lot. The average waist size for men is 40 inches and 38 inches for women, which are, of course, dangerous zones for general health. Part of the FIT program is actually measuring a metric called the waist to height ratio, where it's not BMI, because BMI, I have a little bit of a higher BMI because I'm 5'9", I weigh about 168 pounds. And so I carry a little bit more muscle since I focus a lot on lifting weights. And so, yeah, my BMI is going to be closer to overweight, but I'm also measuring how small is my waist and what is my resting heart rate to compensate those things. So I think those metrics in terms of being above average are way better than BMI. But I digress. The average American walks about 3,000 to 4,000 steps a day, which is about half of what it should be. 50% of adults in America don't even meet basic exercise requirements, but that's just according to the research I've done for this podcast. I suspect it's actually more than that, because the average person works out less than 2 times a week. Really should be at least 3. And you should be walking 8,000 to 10,000 steps a day. 60% of what people eat in America is highly processed foods. And to be clear, I'm not against processed foods. I think people get mixed up on seed oils and processed foods a little too much. But the problem with those is that they are often very calorically dense and not filling and not full of nutrients. Because as a country, with 50% of adults either being pre-diabetic or diabetic, America is a country of overfed and undernourished people. Been talking about this with a couple of my newer clients lately, where they experience hunger cravings or cravings for certain things. If you're not eating enough nutrient-dense foods to tick all the vitamin and mineral boxes and hit a protein and fiber goal, when you have cravings for other foods, that's your body's way of signaling that it's deficient in something. And for some people, that might be more carb sources. And for some people, for a couple of my clients, it's actually been more fat dense sources where they've craved like very calorically dense, high fat foods just due to not getting enough nutrients chronically over the course of probably months or years. On top of that, at least 50% of Americans eat fast food at least once a week. 50% of adults take some sort of prescription drug regularly, with the healthcare expenditures in our country topping $4.5 trillion and close to 90% of that being for non-communicable diseases. And on top of that, people tend to be on technology way too much these days, being in front of screens 7+ hours a day. And this is something that now that I create content is definitely challenging for me to overcome in some ways, because I'm doing work on a computer for promoting health, wellness, and my coaching business. But if we break this down on the other side, let's take it from the positive. How easy is it to be above average? Take 8,000 steps a day. Eat like someone who actually cares about how they feel and what their body is going to do. Prioritize protein, whole foods, fiber. Cook 80% of your meals at home. The average person working out less than 2 times per week. Sometimes a workout can just be going for a dedicated walk at a brisk pace. Walking is great exercise. Most importantly, though, you got to lift weights. You really, really got to strength train. You got to build muscle. 75% of Americans are also dehydrated. Just drink more water. When it comes to simple health habits and being way above average and moving the needle with your health, it's those simple things. But it still shocks and amazes me how many people cannot do simple, basic, consistent things over time. And it's why I think a lot of these supplement companies and these very flashy, like the new workout programs and the new flashy diets like carnivore, these things get a lot of traction because people are looking for the quickest and easiest solution to all their problems instead of doing what they know works. So I'm going to be over here not promoting supplements, encouraging everyone to do the boring things consistently over time, and ultimately just stop being average. Don't expect greatness from your life and true deep satisfaction from your life if you're just willing to be average or below average and not do the things that it takes to be excellent. Thank you all very much for listening today to the Aaron Jacobs podcast, where hopefully this is a wake-up call on not being average. Everyone take care and be well, and expect more from yourself.